Hey, this is April, and this show, Set Show, discusses cannabis, psychedelics, and altered states of consciousness generally. It's intended for audiences 21 and over. Also, I am not a medical expert. If you are looking to engage with psychedelic substances, please consult your physician before doing so. Welcome back to Set Show. I'm your host, April Pride. I'm also the CEO of Set, which is a resource for everyone curious to safely explore cannabis and psychedelics and learn more about their therapeutic potential. This episode is the second part of my conversation with Christian Rasmussen, who is the largest merchant of Amanita Muscaria in the United States. And if you haven't listened to the first part, I encourage you to go back and do so. You'll learn about Christian's benzo addiction, which led him to discovering the healing potential of Amanita, as it's casually referred. Known for its unique effects, and therapeutic potential, Amanita Muscaria has been helping people with mental clarity, emotional resilience, and even anxiety management for, probably eons. Christian shares practical tips on how to prepare and use Amanita safely and why education is so critical when exploring this powerful mushroom. If you're interested in integrating microdosing of psilocybin or Amanita into your wellness routine, be sure to check out the show notes that link to Microsite, Set's 12-week psilocybin microdosing protocol, designed by clinicians to guide you through a safe, structured approach to microdosing. Also in the show notes, a special discount code. I'll tell you what it is here. It's CARDS cards. Enter cards at checkout, and you can get our psychedelic cards. Buy one, get the second half off. So you and a friend can own these powerful, what I like to call set and setting in a box. Check this out and make your next journey extraordinary. So let's continue exploring Amanita Muscaria with Christian Rasmussen in this enlightening second part.
Anymore. I think one of my favorite stories that I like to tell is in the beginning days when we first started this, and I was hosting these monthly Zoom meetings with people that were experimenting and trying to figure out what worked and what didn't. And we had a woman come on about 2 weeks into her month-long microdose protocol. And she was like, "Hi, Christian, I'm not sure what's going on. I feel like I'm a little more relaxed and less reactionary, but I don't quite get it yet." I talked for a little bit and gave her some pointers. And it was a month later that she came back on the meeting, and she was 2 weeks off of her protocol, and she was just lit up and very excited. And she's like, I figured it out. I figured out what's been going on. I was like, "Yeah, what's going on?" She said, "That inner critic, that self-deprecating voice has been gone since a week after I started, and it hasn't come back yet at all." It's a beautiful thing to happen, but it's also indicative of a lot of people aren't watching their thought processes. We can feel like the reactions that we get, physical, somatic reactions. But a lot of these changes happen very subtly and that have a profound impact over time. One of the best ways to really gauge what's happening is to get in tune with your thoughts and in tune with yourself and in tune with your energy. And in that sense, it's also a really wonderful teacher to teach one to be more aware of the inner.
It's really an interesting time for the world to be reminded that this is a resource for them, right? Particularly youth who are experiencing higher rates of anxiety and unfortunately suicide. What is the recommendation? I'm a mom. I have 2 boys that are in high school, and I am curious, can they take something like this? Can I make them a tea?
Yeah.
Oh, that's me. But I have psilocybin that I microdose.
It's a little more lenient with this. There's no regulatory, but I can't go recommending anything.
Yeah.
But that being said, I do know a handful of people. I know a lot of people actually that have sworn by it. I know people that have given it to babies in really small doses. And no data. We have no idea what it could be doing. But from the stories that I've heard, it seems relatively effective. I think from my own personal experience, like I was using substances at 16, 17 very heavily. If I had something like this, I probably wouldn't have gone down those roads that I went down. I don't know. I would love to get some data on it at some point.
So what do you think it is about us humans that we've got to go through the like challenging experience and see our demons and confront them to get to the same outcome that we may not know we're seeking, but just this inner calmness and inner peace when we can use something like Amanita and we can spare ourselves that additional trauma, really? What is it? Why do we have to go through this obstacle course?
It's an interesting question. I think that we all come into this life with a set of ideas and lessons that we're intending to learn. I feel like we all have these bases of root systems that we come into this life with. And part of uprooting that root system and getting it out, it needs to grow and take hold in the soil before we can recognize it fully. I feel like maybe if I hadn't have gone through what I went through as a kid and in my 20s, those root systems or those little nubs, those little balls of darkness would still be there. And maybe Amanita wouldn't, I don't know. It's hard to say if Amanita would have dealt with it. But I think in my instance, I've needed to allow those roots to not only grow, but to lash out at me and the people that I love so that I could really see them and recognize them so that I could uproot them and shine the light where they once stood. So I don't know, but I think we all have these goals and ambitions and lessons that we're intending to learn in our life. And I think that, yeah, it's almost a necessity, at least in this paradigm that we're in, to allow those to develop so that we can heal them. And unfortunately, most people don't. They just allow them to keep rooting and keep lashing out at people. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I wonder if taking something like this early on in my life would have uprooted those tiny nubs before they took hold.
Yeah, it depends on, I think teenagers just want to try anything that's going to take
Yeah.
them to the limit, right?
Yeah.
So there's that curiosity that males in particular are really seeking.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure.
but I think that I don't know how old you are. I'm in my late 40s, and there was no dialogue around how we're feeling and the state of our mental
Yes.
health, right? When I was in high school. But the kids today, they know how to use their words, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they'll come to you and say, maybe no one's going to, my boys are not going to come to me, but I know I can bring it up with them
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
they'll, oh, mom. And so they're open to feeling different than how they're feeling that's not making them feel good. They do
Yeah.
want that to go away. I think that these tools are something that maybe young children or younger people are more receptive to
Sure.
because they already suffer from so much anxiety. The last thing they want to do is get on a rocket ship and go to the moon, right? That
Sure.
makes sense. Okay, so this, Amanita, this is only one thing that you have on your website
Mhm.
that people can legally purchase and start to use as a tool to help them feel better in a variety of ways. So Blue Lotus is another one. And that is, I have an extract from you.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
haven't opened any of these because I wanted to hear from you how I should be
Right.
using these. So Blue Lotus, what is someone seeking that would make them choose this particular piece of nature?
It's got a different resonance. So a lot of the effects are somewhat similar to Amanita. Amanita is the king. So Amanita is the top dog with all these. But Blue Lotus is interesting. Blue Lotus was the most revered psychoactive plant by the ancient Egyptians. And I think personally that, and from my own experience and from a lot of the anecdotes that we've collected, a lot of these medicines, well, particularly Blue Lotus and Amanita, are very energetic medicines. And in that sense, a lot of us in this physical, super tapped in, like channeling entities and like doing energy work, like it's maybe more subtle. But I have some friends that are really tapped in. Blue Lotus is profoundly psychedelic for them. Where for most people, it's not. Blue Lotus is an nonergen, which means it's a dream enhancer. So people will use it for lucid dreaming. It also has a subtle euphoric body load to it. It has a relaxing quality. It opens one up, and then it's a heart opener, which is the most unique aspect of it. That Amanita opens the heart too. I feel like Amanita, it's red and white. So there's like the root chakra, the crown chakra. It seems to get everything in between. Blue Lotus seems to focus on the heart and the throat. So your expressive nature and then your love and your empathy. So we found that people that take Blue Lotus consistently, anecdotally, we've been told, I've experienced this myself, people's hearts will open which is super needed in this world right now. So for me personally, that's the most unique and cool aspect of Blue Lotus. But then it also has a really synergistic quality with it. So if somebody smokes cannabis or takes psilocybin, it seems in conjunction with these, it seems to create a whole new experience, which is really unique
Okay.
to Blue Lotus. Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. Okay. So this is 10 grams of powdered extract. So give me some doses
Yeah.
and how one would consume this. I guess tea again.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's a 10-to-1 extract, meaning 10 grams of the flower goes into 1 gram of the extract. Most
Okay.
people will brew it into tea. We sell gummies and capsules online too.
The extract is the most economical.
So yeah, the raw material is considerably cheaper per
You hit,
dose, but most people will take anywhere from 200 milligrams to a gram, which would be maybe like a quarter teaspoon or so. Hard to say for sure. And they'll just mix it in hot water and drink it down. It's really pleasant tasting. It's florally. It's wonderful brew to drink, and then it has nice, pleasant effects as well. Blue Lotus
yep.
is pretty subtle. And Amanita can be too, unless you get into really high doses. But for super energetically tapped in people, it can be very profound. Where for most people, it's pretty subtle, but it's really enjoyable into that space.
So I have a jeweler's scale, right? Because I weigh out mushrooms, and that's
Yeah.
what I would use to measure out 100 milligrams.
I would probably start with a half gram. I think most people will take 1 to 4 gummies, so anywhere from 300 milligrams to 1.2 grams. It seems
Mhm.
to have diminishing returns after 2 grams for me, at least. So like 4 grams isn't twice as strong as 2 grams.
So you said that Amanita it activates the GABA system.
Mhm.
What about Blue Lotus?
Blue Lotus hits a lot of different systems, actually. It's really interesting. It hits the serotonin system. It hits it hits a lot of systems. Amanita does too, though. It hits the cholinergic system, the glutamate system, the cannabinoid system, the serotonin system. So they're plants have generally a lot of wide pharmacological action compared to our single bullet drugs that hit one specific system.
Totally. That's interesting that the Amanita hits the glutamate system. I work in psychedelics, so ketamine is in that
Mhm.
category.
Yeah.
Ketamine also activates the glutamate system. And when I started researching it, I have a diagnosis of ADHD. I was like, why, when I sit at my desk after I was very surprised the next day how focused I was,
Mhm.
how at ease I was with my work. And when I started to dig into that a little bit, it had everything to do with the repair that was happening, the
Yeah.
glutamate system. I'm interested in Amanita. I've been
Sure.
taking it for 10
Yeah.
years now. And I'm wondering if that's a report that you've gotten back.
100%. And it's
Okay.
interesting too, like the glutamate system it ties in a lot to like neurogenesis, neuroplasticity. You mentioned repair, and it's like, that's what seems to go on. So another use that people really find Amanita helpful for is for ADD and ADHD, but it's not just while you're on it or in the afterglow of it. It seems to rewire things. So it's like more of a consistent thing, which is really beautiful and powerful and so different than typical pharmaceutical drugs that like while you're on it, it's helpful, but when you're on it off, it's considerably worse because it damage your receptor sites. And yeah, it actually works very similarly to ketamine, the ibotenic acid. And in large doses, we're talking like I mentioned 7 grams is the more medium dose. Large doses are like 10, 15 grams plus. And in those spaces, it has a very reminiscent feeling to medium doses of ketamine. So there's a dissociative feel to it.
Okay.
That was great.
Um, yeah, kava is great, but I only know it as something that can help me relax. What can you
Yeah.
tell me about kava?
So kava, it's like a South Pacific drink, and they'll brew the root system up, and they'll drink it at ceremonies or rituals or meetings between island chiefs, and they use it in place of alcohol. So it's an inebriant in that sense. I think the use case is much more for anxiety, sociability, sleep, things of that nature. But then it has this unique aspect of it where it can make one feel drunk and silly, which is why there's thousands of kava bars popping up all around the country, which is a fantastic alternative to alcohol.
Yeah.
Some people will find that kava works a lot better for their anxiety than it does. So it's just another option, but it has a very distinct, different feeling to it as well for connoisseurs like myself or anybody that's really interested in altering their chemistry or exploring outer realms of the human psyche. It's a great thing to experiment with. I think Amanita is the top seller for us, and then Blue Lotus, and then probably kava.
So I was just checking because on your website, when you're describing these things, I'm struck by the fact you don't carry.
No,
No.
no, I do.
Can you explain why?
Yeah, for sure. So I used kratom to get off of hard opiates in my 20s, and it saved my life. Like, it really did. I likely wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for it. So wonderful plant. I also got extremely addicted to it, like taking copious amounts of it, and getting off of that was just as hard, if not harder, than getting off of harder opiates, because it hits a whole plethora of different receptor sites in the brain. It was really difficult. However, it's held a dear place in my heart because it literally did save my life. I was asked time and time again in the early days to start carrying it. And I was always, I don't want to carry something that's addicting. But then there's also the risk of a 60-year-old woman that purchases from Kentucky who has pain and doesn't realize it's addicting. And then all of a sudden is addicted to something. Like, that's a risk that I wasn't really willing to take. More recently, we had a bunch of stories across my radar of people really needing help. So about 4 months ago, we opened up our Kratom website. I wanted to keep it off of my current website because I don't want people that are not familiar with it getting addicted to it. So we do have a Kratom website. We have some of the best Kratom on the market, some of the greatest prices, but it's not something that I market much. And then it's really just for people that really need it and find it. I feel like if somebody finds it on their own, there's maybe like an energetic transfer there that isn't quite there if it's just marketed all over the website that I carry or that I have. I'm happy that we opened it up, but I also have all over the website, this is addicting. Please be careful. This is what you can do to avoid addiction. Or there's resources for people to get off of kratom, which there's some really, or opiates in general, there's some really wonderful tools that people just don't know about that actually work extremely well. That's a big part of it as well. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it if I didn't have all of that information and those disclaimers all over the website.
Yeah. The reason I asked is because I know it's addictive, and I've watched my friends who didn't have opioid disorder before have to figure out how they're going to go to Thailand for vacation with their family and come off of kratom because they can't travel with it. And
Yep.
so not seeing it on your website, I assumed that you're an addict, and why would you put that on your website? So none of this stuff is habit forming in a way that can be detrimental.
Habit forming is anything can be habit forming, but yeah, physically addicting. Nothing that we carry is, again, anything can be very slightly physically addicting and not have that issue. We carry lemon balm, which is the GABA system.
Yeah. And I apologize too. I didn't mean to call you an addict. I shouldn't have said that. I too suffer from substance use. Okay. All right. And then these are the capsule form of this. Those are my last products. Yeah. Nice. Okay. 500 milligrams. I've learned so much. I could sit on the phone and just go through or sit on the Zoom and go through your entire product list. And perhaps we'll have a follow-up call because I do think what you're doing is really important. The more I've been focused on the psychedelic space for 3.5 years prior to that, I too was working in cannabis. And I watch people try to find, they're seeking something that can give them the answer. And so my work is really focused on integration. And I wonder if integration and integrative practices can absolutely be used when using these medicines too. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That is profound. Anything else is there anything that you would like to add that we haven't discussed? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being one of those people that's making sure that we do know that this is a resource. Yeah. Really nice to know you, Christian. Yeah, of course. Where can people find you? And Minnesota. Yeah, we'll do a follow-up after all this. Bye-bye. Yeah. Thank you for joining us for today's show. I'm April, and I'll be back the next installment of Set Show, where we cover everything you need to have a safe, supported psychedelic experience in the wild. If you're starting to think about holiday gifts, Set has you covered for the stoners and psychonauts on your list. Set's Psychedelic Cards, a card game to enhance connection and exploration during altered states. Go to getsetset.com, that's GETSETSET.com, and get 1 deck of cards for free when you purchase 2 decks. Enter the number 3, FOR,
the number 2 at checkout. That's 3 FOR 2 at getsetset.com.